Tracking the dangerous heat into the holiday weekend forecast with an excessive heat warning in place Saturday through Tuesday throughout almost the entire state. Zooming in a little bit closer to the valley, we'll see some peak highs near 115. Very little overnight relief. And then as we head towards the coast, excessive heat watch. So some places that we normally think we can beat the heat, still dealing with some of it. Dangerous heat, mostly for the interior coast with peak highs in the 90s. It's a classic setup. High pressure ridge over the Four Corners, sinking warming air, storm track to the north of us. So we just bake right through the Central Valley in particular, but also spreading out to many of our communities in the foothills, the Bay Area, and even the Sierra. When we take a look at climate change, what influence is it having on conditions like this and stretches like this? Well, for afternoon highs, we're still going to put it in the category of 4 to 5 for more likely that climate change is a factor in a forecast like this and a weather pattern persisting. But when we take a look at the overnight lows, that's where we see some of the bigger climate change impacts, especially throughout the entire West, where those lows just aren't getting down like they used to, allowing us that overnight relief and a break from some of this heat. You can see the impact lineup here as we make our way through the rest of the week into the weekend. Thursday and Friday, we're going to be in the moderate range. But when we get into Saturday, we start talking about a higher impact range. Sunday and Monday, that's extreme conditions. Not only is it the cumulative effect, but it's also peak highs between 110 and 115. For Sacramento, our high forecasted right now 112 for Labor Day. Dangerous heat and near records. Our sunset is just before 7:30, which allows us to at least have some relief without the sun baking us throughout the early part of our evening. Flex alerts will be in place, air quality alerts as well, fire danger and sporting events. Some of those have already been postponed, and some of them have said we're going to start a little bit later just to allow a bit of cooling to take place and avoid that peak heat, which is between 4 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Had a flex alert on Wednesday, another one called for Thursday from 4 p.m. until 9 p.m. Voluntary power conservation is asked for all folks throughout the state, just to allow us to keep that power on. Less pressure on the grid can allow us to not only have no rolling blackouts, but also keep the power on. Ways to do that: turn up the air conditioner to 78 degrees or higher. Postponing the use of large appliances will help, not only to keep the power on, but keep the power bills a little bit lower as well. It can have some big savings actually adding up on a stretch like this. A spare the air alert is called for Thursday. That's because of building ozone, very little airflow. So throughout the valley, we're going to really see things getting a little bit gunky in the air. And to keep it a bit cleaner, reducing driving and equipment use for gas-powered lawn tools. Using active transit may be a little bit difficult with the bicycle, scooter, or walking, just because it's going to be so hot outside. So using mass transit would be a better option at this point. Our air quality for Thursday in the valley: Sacramento, Placer, and El Dorado counties, all unhealthy for sensitive groups, but expecting that to deteriorate with this pattern persisting deep into the weekend and even into parts of next week. Looking at that Labor Day weekend forecast for San Francisco, highs are in the 80s, morning lows in the 60s, still quite a bit warmer than what we expect for our Bay Area forecast. In the valley, it's a completely different story. Sunny skies, morning lows right around the mid 60s to lower 70s, highs in the 100s. As we travel up into the foothills, it gets a little bit interesting because even though the afternoon highs aren't quite as warm, still deep into the 100s, morning lows aren't quite as cool. It's a thermal belt that traps the heat during the night, and so we see those lows only dropping into the mid to upper 70s with clear skies and sunshine during the day. The Tahoe Basin, well, those morning lows certainly look refreshing. 40s for morning lows, the afternoon highs in the low 90s. So a little bit different scenario. It's another place to beat the heat, but we're not going to see quite as cool conditions during the afternoon as, say, the Bay Area. But those morning lows are going to be quite nice. So there's a look at our regional forecast, a varied forecast with multiple microclimates throughout this area. That means a lot of different weather. If you're traveling, just be prepared for whatever weather conditions we're heading into this weekend. So why does the Bay Area stay so cool right now? We've got wind blowing over the cold ocean water. Water temperature there 56 degrees. We've also got the heat in the valley. It acts like a vacuum that literally is trying to pull that cooler air in, that thinner air and lower pressure, allowing complete access right through the coast, pulling it in. And so it settles right along the coast here. What's preventing it from getting into the valley? That high pressure ridge. It's sinking, warming air, and it basically is just a big block to all that cool air coming in right now. And we have no access to that cooling breeze. Once it kicks in, our temperatures will drop significantly. It's just not the case for the next several days. Some things to look out for, especially with this stretch, is heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Heat exhaustion is dizziness, thirsty, heavy sweating, nausea, weakness. But when it kicks into heat stroke, a person can actually become unconscious, and it's time to call 911. Either way, seek shade and also try to stay as cool as possible. Another thing that folks may be doing is heading out to our many waterways, which tend to offer some relief, but we want to use the buddy system, avoid alcohol, which by the way is illegal over a holiday weekend on the American River. Wear a life jacket as well. Some of the locations will provide a free life jacket, but many times over a holiday weekend, they are gone by the time you get there. If you can't make it out to the waterways, but perhaps you still want to do some traveling, I've got the top 5 places to beat the heat within about 2 to 2.5 hours of Sacramento. Pacifica, we're going to be in the low 70s for highs. Half Moon Bay is my number 2. We'll be in the mid 70s. My number 3 place is Point Reyes, just to the north of San Francisco, in the low 80s. And San Francisco also in the low 80s. Tahoe in the low 90s with sunny skies. Now for Tahoe too, we've got a lot of folks that like to do some camping in the foothills. Again, we are going to be in the low 100s with morning lows in the 70s. So a couple of heat safety tips: stay hydrated, stay in the shade, prepare for warm nights, and follow burn bans. We've been so lucky so far this season. Last year at this point, we had over 2 million acres burned with over 6,000 fires. This year, comparatively, just slightly over 200,000 acres burned and about 5,800 fires so far. Talked to John Heggie from CAL FIRE earlier today on the contributing factors of why we've seen a slightly less aggressive fire season and some of the things they're doing to prepare for the Labor Day holiday weekend.
If you look at the weather pattern this year, we've had a lot more humidity. And, when we have higher humidity, that monsoonal flow, it kind of keeps that fire danger low. With that being said, this week, that switch has happened. And now we have those high temperatures and that low humidity. So even though our acres burned so far this year are below where we have been, we still have that potential moving into the fall. And as we all know throughout California, this really is the most dangerous part of the fire season. We will be increasing our staffing in anticipation of the holiday weekend, obviously bringing in extra staff to ensure that we are at our full force to address each and every emergency, and especially the wildfire threat. So we will be out there ready to attack any fires that start.